I have become the best known sport flooring contractor in the world, and I'm just getting started. Hello, this is Paul Nelson with Western Sport Floors, Wyoming Wood Floors, coming to you today in Clinton, Montana. Today I'm actually really excited because I want to talk about second story volleyball sleeves. How to install second story volleyball sleeves. And I'm going to share some information with you that has cost us some sweat, blood, and tears, but we think we've come up with a solution for the issue. Now, first of all, I'm talking about a second story volleyball sleeve. I'm talking about a gymnasium that's built on top of a floor joist system, some kind of a wooden floor joist system. So this may actually be on the second story of a school, or it may be on the first story, but they just have a crawl space underneath the gymnasium. So the gymnasium floor is actually built on floor joists. This first picture that you're going to look at is a floor that we recently replaced. And I just want to point out the sleeves. Somebody went in there and cobbled something together. And I think they had 6 or 7 of these sleeves in this facility. And 2 or 3 of them had failed. This isn't the right way to do it. They took and tried to fabricate a piece of steel and tied one floor joist into the other. But in the end, that failed. The next picture that you're looking at is somebody just poured a puddle of cement and shoved a volleyball sleeve down into it. This one also failed. This next one, again, somebody fabricated something, got a piece of electrical conduit running right beside the volleyball sleeve, and they attempted to weld the sleeve to this piece of sheet metal, and the weld broke, and this sleeve failed. So what do you do? School district calls you and says, we'd like these volleyball sleeves put on the floor, and this is outside the scope of your typical gym floor equipment folks. The basketball folks, they don't want to deal with this. The bleacher folks, they don't want to deal with this. This really is a floor problem. So learning how to do this can solve your customers' challenges. And frankly, if there's nobody else to do it, I think you could expect to be fairly well paid for this service. But you have to make sure you do it correctly so that you don't have the failure like I was pointing out on those other pictures. This photo is actually a pre-manufactured apparatus that you can purchase on the internet, as is the next photo, as is the next photo. We have actually tried this and we've done this successfully. If you see on this photo, this is from a project of ours. This was a pre-manufactured box. And here's the challenge. 2 of these things cost about $500. And we still had a carpenter that worked about a day and a half to put these in. So this is a fairly expensive solution. This white box that you see sits underneath the floor. It's filled with grout and a sleeve is inserted into it. The fail points, however, are the screws or the lag bolts that you run up into the floor system. If those pull out, this system fails. We have used this successfully, but I don't think this is the best way of doing it. Okay. I went on the internet and searched diligently for some specifications of what might be out there as to how to install these. The best that I was able to come up with is from Garrett, G-A-R-E-D, Garrett Floor Systems. This is actually meant as an installation into concrete, but they're showing a concrete foot of 1 foot 4 inches. Of course, 1 foot 4 inches is 16 inches in total, which is approximately the space between your floor joists in most situations. So, sort of based on this spec, I deduced that a 16-inch by 16-inch block on the bottom of that volleyball sleeve, properly reinforced, should do the trick, and experience has shown us that that is approximately correct. We've done them smaller than that, we've done them much larger than that, just kind of depending on the situation. So where do you start? The volleyball sleeves should be 36 feet apart. The volleyball stanchions stand 36 feet apart. The court is 30 feet wide, and they share, of course, the center boundary of the basketball hoop. So by stretching a plumb line between the baskets, where it intersects the center of the basketball line, that's going to be the center of your floor. You can measure out 18 feet on each side of that, and that would be where your sleeves would go in the basketball court. We have determined that high strength 5,000 pound concrete, or I'll even buy 6,000 pound concrete, that's basically footing concrete, is the best mortar to use. So you open up the floor system and you look at something like this, just a hole in the floor. Sometimes you'll find a joist running right through where your sleeve has to go, and so you're going to need to remove that joist and head it off. Okay, put a header in there. We will then rebar between the joists with either rebar or preferably threaded rod in 2 directions. So we're using a minimum of 8 threaded rods in 2 directions where that sleeve is going to sit. Here's another picture, and on this one you can see that the joist was going absolutely through where the volleyball canister needed to sit. It would make me a little bit nervous to cut a joist off on a second story building. In this case, somebody had already done it. The building had stood for 50 years since they'd done it, so we're pretty comfortable that we could fill this box with concrete, rebarred, and not structurally damage that floor system. Another picture of a box. We got concrete going, we got rebar going in 2 directions. On this one, it was actually the first level of this gym. It just happened to have a crawl space underneath the gym, and the crawl space was only a couple of feet deep, and so we went all the way down to the dirt in the crawl space, and we drove fence posts. Those little green things that you can see the heads of there are fence posts. We drove fence posts down into the dirt and tied them into our rebar and poured that column up to fully support that volleyball sleeve. Okay, so we built a little box this morning, a little mock floor system, and I put a box in here just to replicate what it is that we would do. So you're looking at rebar. It's in 2 directions, so each level has 2, I said rebar. You're looking at threaded rod. There's 2 of them going in each direction. We're using a concrete tie to tie them together. Bottom level is the same thing. And now the volleyball sleeve would drop right in the center of this square. That whole box is going to get filled with concrete. Again, that's approximately a 16-inch by 16-inch box. That's going to take about 4 bags of concrete, about 200 pounds of concrete, and we found that is sufficient to anchor that sleeve indefinitely. If we're actually working on a second story where we have a classroom or something underneath, we're going to take great stuff and fill all these small voids with great stuff so that we don't end up with a situation where we have wet, dripping concrete coming through the ceiling and the floor below. So that would be the one other little item that I'd like to mention there. Okay, so now you have successfully built your box, tied the threaded rod in 2 directions, tied the joints at the threaded rod with concrete ties. You fill your box with mortar and then carefully set that volleyball sleeve down into that wet mortar, and then very carefully make sure that thing is level. That thing has to be absolutely dead on level. Once that happens, you're done for the day. Let that concrete dry overnight. You can put your subfloor back in, your plywood, and cover it with maple. Of course, when you're coming over the top of that sleeve with maple, just like any gym floor installation, you have to drill a little hole through your maple directly dead center over that volleyball sleeve, and then you're ready to sand it and then router in your caps like normal. Hope this has been helpful. We've learned these lessons the hard way, and I would expect watching this video is the easy way to learn this. For Western Sport Floors and Wyoming Wood Floors, this is Paul Nelson. You make it. Great day.